All right, guys, before we get started, I want to let you in on this month's masterclass. If you're listening to this particular podcast within a few days of it being released, it's coming at you this coming Wednesday, September 24th at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. That's UTC -4. What's the topic this month? Well, it's a real good one that affects a whole lot of guys. What women wish you knew. We're going to cover everything that goes on inside a woman's mind, all of her thoughts, all of her desires, everything she wishes men knew, especially you. Listen, most guys have no idea what women wish we knew, and women aren't going to come out and tell us. They want us to figure it out on our own. Now, as unfair as that sounds, it's the law of the jungle, guys, and this particular masterclass is going to lift the veil once and for all and show you what's going on. Reveal everything women wish you knew when it comes to dating, relationships, sex, even getting along with them in general. It's all there for you in this masterclass. Your results are guaranteed. You're going to love this masterclass. And listen, gentlemen, remember, this is the new school. This isn't just a recording of content you listen to and hope for the best. It's interactive. You can interact with me and the other guys in real time during the masterclass, and even after it's over, if you want to get on the phone with me or email me, I'm here to take your questions and give you real-world answers based on your specific experiences and sticking points. That's what a masterclass is all about. This is the 42nd month in a row we've done one. Brand new topic, probably way overdue. What women wish you knew. Coming this Wednesday night, September 24th, 2025 at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Get your tickets to this, transformational masterclass at mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. And now, enjoy this really fun and actually very educational podcast with my new friend, professional comedian, Clifford Myers. You can find the video version of this episode at mountaintoppodcast.com/YouTube.
Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
All right, gentlemen, how's it going? This is your main man, Scott McKay, coming at you with another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. Now, every once in a while, I'll tell you at the beginning of these shows that we're going to have some fun. Today, we darn skippy better have some fun because I have a professional comedian on joining us. And we're going to talk about how comedy gives us as men confidence. And that may strike the fear of God within you, but I promise we're going to make it as easy on you as we can and pretty actionable. Before we go there, and before I introduce my guest, I want to remind you that I'm on social media pretty much everywhere at Scott McKay, 1T, of course, with the exception of Instagram. I wasn't an early adopter there, so it's at Real Scott McKay. Guys, join us on the Facebook group at Mountaintop Summit. More and more of you guys are starting to do that finally, which is great. So we're glad to have you on board. Welcome, welcome if you've already joined. If not, hey, what are you waiting for? Have some fun. Get on the Facebook group and let's talk. The mountaintoppodcast.com website is newly accelerated. We just changed web hosts and man, it loads pretty much as fast as Cisco systems. It's pretty awesome. So if you've ever noticed a little lag on the website, well, you know, we're not slackers anymore. We got with the program, literally. My guest comes to us from Ontario. So he's a Canadian. Sorry to you South Park fans. And yet his jaw is fully hinged to his skull, unlike on South Park. And he is here to talk about how comedy builds confidence. He is from the othercomedy.co up in Canada. So he's a part of a full-fledged, legit comedy team. As a friend of mine says, he does this for a living. If you have to remind people of that, you probably are coming off a bit amateurish. But in Clifford Myers' case, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a professional comedian and a heck of a guy. We've known each other for a little while now. Clifford, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. Hello, fellas. Good to be here. I like that you put the pressure of mandatory fun Let's get that out of the gate. Let's have a good time with one another. I'm really happy to be having this conversation today.
Well, unless you're Lewis Black, comedy not being fun doesn't really work.
No, not for me. I always find that it's a little bit of a dance. The more you give the audience, the more they give back. So I kind of have that wiring within me. And that's probably going to be a good precursor to this conversation today, because some of the listeners may be naturally funny and some of them may just be afraid to say words to the opposite sex or the same sex if that's who they're attracted to.
Yeah, they're more worried about coming off funny in the wrong way. Like
yes.
the Joe Pesci Goodfellas way. Like, you think I'm a funny guy? What up? You know, they don't want to come off like that to women. But you make a great point. And that's that when you have this lens of being comedic, okay, you say, okay, I'm going to be funnier. It's very true that we want to be funny because it helps us. You know, it makes us more likable. It makes us more charming. My goodness. I'm on record as telling these guys it's like catnip to women, as I'm sure you know. And they're like, yeah, but it's really hard. Right. But you touched upon one of the first and most important principles of being effective at comedy. You said you just like to make everybody laugh, make everybody happy, make everybody lighten up. Anytime there's a comedian and you can sense that they're in it for their own personal gain, in other words, they need your approval. They're there to bask in the limelight. People will literally withhold laughter from them.
Absolutely.
They'll clam up. There's something psychologically that goes on there that says, don't laugh at this guy because he's too needy. So if we go in any situation with women thinking how I'm going to impress her because I'm so darn funny, they're going to look at you like, what? Like, ick. Can you comment on that a little bit? Have you seen that psychology at play?
That's nail on the head. That's the validation trick. If you're going in there to be validated, that is the first and fastest path to not be, right? And if you go in there detached, where their validation does not matter, it will just happen organically. It will just happen because they don't want to. It's not about whether or not they're going to or not going to validate you. They want to know if you're coming up honest, and they can sniff it from a mile away. And this is honestly, like, it's so interesting equating audiences to women, because in my experience, it is very, very similar. It's actually one of the reasons why I don't like when women flirt with me after shows, because they're seeing me at my absolute most confident. I have practiced these lines. They're seeing what I am at my absolute best presentation. And it's actually not a good, realistic look of what life is like. Life is much more like an open mic. You're going to watch me bomb on a day-to-day basis more than me at my most confident. I always say comedians are their most attractive 30 minutes after a show.
Boy, that's really insightful. Now, you were talking about audiences and women being similar, and I'm thinking, okay, they're all drunk. They all want your money. They're all going to be mean to you.
They're going to interrupt you when they can.
All heckling you, right? But no, you're very, very true. Fickle. They're both. The wind can blow with them.
Well, I kind of want to touch on what you were saying about how, like, if you go in with like selfish motives, how that's literally going to be sensed. Like, I very much have noticed when I am performing because I'm happy to be there. Like, I'm just going in with the right mentality. This is awesome. I'm glad to be here today. Oh, the weather is awesome. Look at these people laughing. Like, they're just here to have a good time. But if I'm in there because I'm like, oh, there's a person in the audience, and if I make them laugh, oh, they have an in at Just for Laughs, and maybe that will skyrocket me, and I can be on the Tonight Show in front of tens of people. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. You know, like, if you're in that mentality, I will say the worst shows I've ever done have been industry showcases.
Wow.
Oh yeah, so like the joke you made off the top when you have to say people I do this for a living, like I literally consider myself a comedy practitioner because I'm not just a comedian. I have come up as a performer, but I also have the comedy business, the Other Comedy Company. I'm the president of the Canadian Association of Stand-Up, Sketch, and Improv Comedians. So we do advocacy work. So I'm literally in the world of comedy from every angle. And it's constantly telling people that what you do is real. Like, yeah, this is a real job. Yeah, this is a real business. You know, like, because a lot of people are like, what do you mean? You just make people laugh for a living. And it's like, at some point, you stop seeking their understanding. You understand that people are not going to fully understand your industry, understand what you do. And that is the confidence that's much quieter. I can yell on stage. I can be crazy, zany. I can rip my clothes off. I can do all these attention-seeking things.
Okay.
But the quiet confidence of just knowing who you are and what you do, that is this invisible, sensible force.
That would be a heck of a marketing tagline, because comedy is serious business.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
It's got all the skills. You learn so much about body language. There's a big difference if my arms are crossed, right? If my arms are crossed, you're actually going to see more audience members mimicking me. They're going to mirror my body language.
And
have an
closed
open
body
stance.
language means I'm not open to you. I'm trying to withhold something from you. I may even be a little not even comfortable with you.
Fellas, if you're on a date with a girl and her feet are pointing towards the door, you know where she wants to go.
The rest of her is too.
Yeah, she's ready. She's telling you with her body where she wants to go. The most confident thing you can do in that situation is cut it there. Accept it for what it is. It'd be like, oh, this is where my audience is right now. She's not digging this show, and that's okay. And that's another thing, is you're not going to win every date. That's why you should most likely be dating with intent and being very open-minded, but just don't go in with all these future plans and ideas. Just go in and enjoy the moment for what it is.
Yeah, we need to take pressure off of dates, not put pressure on any interaction with women.
This culture, it's putting on all the pressure. I feel it on all sides.
Everybody's so easily offended and looking for reasons to be angry. And, you mentioned, over the course of the past few years and how things have evolved. You touched on that briefly. During COVID, comedy was so important because we all needed a laugh so badly. And comedians really were center stage in culture. It was absolutely serious business. And I think that is something that matters nowadays also, as we're going back out there and people, their social muscles are getting a little more tuned up. I mean, the thing everybody was saying, myself included, about 3 years ago was everybody's social muscles have atrophied. Well, we've been back to the social gym a little bit. And I think everybody's just wanting, at least in real life, not on social media, not in the political realm, everybody in real life just wants to get along and live their best life. So bringing this back to confidence. Again, you've touched upon this already, but these guys, I talk about comedy enough that they probably heard me mention it before. But when we're talking about comedy as kind of a catalyst for building confidence, that very first idea we touched upon of trying to impress someone, being needy, needing the spotlight to smile upon you, is the absolute antithesis of confidence. I don't have any confidence. I'm not sure of myself at all. I have a need to try to impress you because I don't realize or even believe, I don't know if that's a cart or a horse, but I don't recognize that I'm good enough. I don't believe that I'm enough as I am. So therefore, I've got to get you to validate me. That is so contrary to coming off as confident. So the confident comedian, what does he look like?
I think the confident comedian already knows what he's going to do before he's doing it. Like, in the sense that, like, yeah, maybe I came with a notebook, but I'm not looking at it. I know what I'm going with, like I have it. You actually, like, here's something interesting. Someone asked me this question the other day on a dating app, and it was one of the most interesting questions I've ever gotten. You get a lot of the same, tell me a joke. What have you done? Blah, 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 blah. But I've never gotten this question, which was, what do you do 1 minute before going on stage? I've never received this question in my life, not from an interviewer, nothing. And I thought this was such a pointed question because there's actually a ritual that I have. 1 minute before I go on stage, I talk to someone. Anyone in the crowd, I just start talking to them. I'm just like, oh, hey, how's the food? You doing good? You having a good time tonight? I just start talking to someone. I literally just start being present. And that is the very first thing I do. Before I'm on stage, I'm on stage. And so like I find like if we're trying to tap into like where does a comedian's confidence comes from, it's really like that you have nerves, that you feel nervous, and maybe you feel that way on a date or whatever,
or approaching a woman physiologically. It's the same thing as excitement. So your mindset's really going to tell you the story. Are you nervous or are you excited? Right? Like, and if whichever story you're telling yourself, you should act towards that story. So when I'm telling myself I'm excited, of course I'm going to talk to these people in the audience. Oh my gosh, you're here for comedy too? Me too. I'm about to be on stage. What? Like, this is so fun. It's like a warm-up stretch.
Friday, And so I'll do that on dates. I'll talk to the barista. Hey, how's it going? How's your day going? Talk to other people. It's really not about the other person as much as it is about you. Are you comfortable in your own skin? Are you happy to be there? And then at that point, you're coming from a place of self-efficacy, right? You're making choices for yourself. You're not trying to be like, if I just shape myself into this ball, I'll be exactly who they are. This is a Ray Romano crowd. So if I start talking like this, they'll really like me.
That's pretty good.
That wasn't bad.
That's an excellent Romano.
So like...
It sounds almost like a Pee Wee Herman, but oh my God, I think he does in real life.
Like imagine if I like always came in trying to be what I thought someone's comedy sensibilities were. So if you're trying to be in a date with a woman, you're trying to be the man you think she wants, it's not going to work. It's either you're going to be yourself and she likes you, or she doesn't.
You should go into politics if you're more like that.
Yeah, well...
And politicians are rarely funny, so...
Oh my goodness. There is this rise of entertainers going into politics, which is really interesting seeing that crossover. We even heard people saying maybe The Rock will be president one day. There's a lot of people in that public sphere, but they have charisma. They have confidence. They know how to speak, but all of them also just know how to be totally okay in an uncomfortable situation. Right? Okay, this might go the wrong way. I might get hecklers. I'm fine. I'm in control. Right? They're in control of their own decisions. They are confident with what they're saying. They stand by their words. So a lot of this, I think, is completely equatable to what we're talking about when it comes to approaching women and dating. And it's not just about being funny. It's about having an understanding and awareness of who you are.
And a sense of humor.
A
sense of humor is one of those things that most people would say they have, even if they really don't, because I think people really don't understand what it means. If you're easily offended, if everything sucks, you probably don't have the fine-tuned sense of humor you think you have.
Yeah, I almost want to be like, are we calling it sense of humor, or is it like, it's almost like a sliding scale of how serious you take yourself?
Yes.
And I really feel like we shouldn't... This is a problem we have in culture is we are all very serious. Our beliefs are very serious and how we come across is very serious. The club we're in is very serious. And I've kind of come to the conclusion, Scott, that I don't really know a whole lot. I'm kind of a big dumb animal figuring out what it is to go through this existence on Earth. And maybe I shouldn't take myself so serious because I probably don't really know what I'm doing.
People have too much caffeine and too little sleep, and that combination gets you all jittery and easily rattled, I've noticed.
As I'm drinking my coffee.
Yeah, well, you're Canadian. You're allowed.
Yep.
One of the things you talked about in terms of confidence being related to comedy is this idea of going on stage and feeling like you have to put on an act. I think as soon as you're trying to manufacture an experience that is not authentic to yourself, then you're going to slip into that mode of taking yourself too seriously and worrying about fumbling and dropping the ball, and then you're going to get all wadded up. And the way I would put it is, I think if you're going to treat comedy seriously, like we were talking about, or have at least a reasonably urgent and important tone towards being comedic. Comedy can't be an act. It has to be a lifestyle. This has to be something you train your brain to do. Look for, irony in everything. How can I lighten up this group instead of being pesado? Like that's the Spanish-American word for like being Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh instead of Tigger, And nobody likes that person. That person's a bummer. Bummers don't make people laugh, don't make people smile. But if you adopt this lifestyle of trying to sense humor and say, okay, what can I add to it? And we're going to talk about the whole yes and thing, because I know you and I are huge fans of it, both of us. But am I on to something there with the whole lifestyle of comedy thing?
You absolutely are, because we are going to definitely be diving into comedy craft, because there's a lot of specifics, like how people get to a laugh and how people build something up that really applies to this conversation. But something that I want to say, would you say it was pesado?
Pesado, like heavy.
Oh, pesado. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really interesting. And like, I think the concept of people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel, really applies here. And I know when someone makes me feel like welcomed into their home. Right. I always think about, my mom is Portuguese. She's from the Azores. She's the most hospitable woman you'll ever meet. She
moved to Canada?
Oh, yes. I know.
I would have stayed in the Azores, man.
Oh, she still goes there twice a year. But like, she came to Canada, and this woman's hospitality stands out in our culture, because when you come to this house, you are going to get fed. You're going to leave. Your shoes will not fit on your feet anymore. Okay? Like, this woman is going to feed you. She's going to make you feel loved and welcomed immediately. Like, if we could all just tap into a fraction of a Portuguese mother, we would be a lot more socially confident with people. And there is this idea of hospitality. What is hospitality? You welcome them in. You make them feel comfortable. You make them feel safe.
I tapped into a Brazilian mother once. Was that close enough?
A little spicier on the Brazilian side, but like...
But enough about me.
That's so
You're going to
funny.
start withholding laughter if I keep trying too hard.
No, never. So where I look at it is like, before going into the yes and the comedy craft stuff, is there is this like intrinsic position that you have to be inside out. So when you're talking about, okay, I care about putting on this act, you're caring about the external appearance, the external validation. And what's going to happen is you're going to be faced with the inside no matter what. I've done this. I've gone on stage being someone I'm not, and I've had to face a mirror of I was not being authentic. I was not being authentic, and I know I was not being authentic. And boy, do I feel like absolute crumbs.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yes.
Let's look at a couple specific famous comedians.
Okay.
Gilbert Gottfried. Emo
I gotta
Phillips.
stop trying to do impressions.
Emo Phillips.
Yes.
Phillips. The comedy, the writing for both of those guys, especially for Emo, is brilliant. Brilliant is beyond a suitable expression of how good Emo Phillips's comedy writing is. But they're not themselves on stage. They Gottfried has passed on, rest in peace. But those guys play a character on stage, which I think is okay. But the most beloved stand-up comedians come off as authentic. Now, I know for a fact, like, if you see George Lopez without a script, without material, he tends to bomb. He's not quick on his feet. I've seen him in interviews and stuff. But with material, kind of like a Dave Chappelle or someone who just, you kind of just feel that this is who this dude is, right? The fluffy guy, Gabriel Iglesias.
Yes.
Just authentic yet unique presence about them. People want to laugh at those people because I feel like I can relate to you. A guy like Gilbert Gottfried or Emo Phillips is putting on a front. They're putting on an act. And even though it's kind of gimmicky, it seems like after years and years, we get sick of the act and just kind of really wish that the guy would be himself. Notably, if you remember who Bobcat Goldthwait was.
Of course.
Back when he used to be Bobcat Goldthwait. He had a guy this wacky thing where he talked like this. I saw a recent stand-up routine with him where he just talks normally. He's just decided to get back to the basics and focus on comedy. Unfortunately, the train kind of left the station with him, and it came off really strange to see him act normally. But people get shick of the shtick. I was trying to say sick of the shtick, but it's kind of a tongue twister. If we're putting on some kind of front, obviously we're not going to hopefully not be as gimmicky as Gottfried or Phillips. That would be extremely, that would not end well if we're trying to do something like that with a woman. Although I've seen guys try to come close. They'll put on the suave or put on something strange that just doesn't feel like who they are.
Of course.
But when we just relax into that comfort, that confidence that who we are is enough. Hey, I may be a little quirky. I may be a little different, but if I don't judge myself, it's amazing how other people won't judge me either. And I focus on them and making them laugh. It just sort of magically works. And what I would tag onto that before I let you riff away on it, because I know you're champing at the bit, is to make women laugh. You really don't have to be a comedian. You just have to help them feel safe and start having fun. Then they laugh. Then everything you say is comedy. Talking about going from the inside out, that's kind of a different interpretation of that.
Well, you brought up a really interesting point, and the examples of Emo and Gilbert, actually, like, I kind of want to examine that for a moment, because, like, I think in a way they juxtapose Bobcat Goldthwait. So when we're talking about our authentic selves, like on stage, we amplify certain parts of ourselves. Right? So Gilbert and Emo are good examples of guys amplifying one specific part of who they are, which is authentic to them, right? So like Gilbert Godfrey, he will tell any joke. He told the 9/11 joke right after 9/11 at the Shriners. Emo Phillips really believes in being weird and strange and going against the grain. This is something ingrained in who they are. So you know that they're amplifying this one specific part of them. Not all of them. You're not getting all of them, but you're getting a part of them. But with Bobcat, what was that amplifying? What authentic part was that really communicating? Because if you watch his movies are dark. His movies are dark. They go into some really deep areas, like Father of the Year. He had one that was literally about American shootings. You know, like he goes into dark places. He did that Barry Crimmins documentary, which was also a very dark exploration. And when he had this 90s police academy gimmick going on, it was a gimmick. It was Pauly Shore. There was something happening at that time that was I think illustrating your point there. So there's even a difference of fully putting on an act and only ever showing one part of who you are, as opposed to a Norm Macdonald where you got all of him. You did know who Norm was. You knew where he stood. He was a devotee servant to jokes. Right? And he lived and died by that sword. And even the fact that he was quiet about his death was the most Norm thing. You know, you immediately were like, of course you did it that way. Of course, right? Because you never not knew who that guy was. So we're almost looking at three different, you were showing it as two, but I almost feel like it's three. There's, we show up as ourselves, we show up with parts of ourselves, or we show up with an idea of what we think they want.
And, you know, that isn't necessarily incongruent, is it? Because, I mean, no. Obviously, if I'm going someplace where people are going to be not very attuned to raucous humor, you know, I need to belong in that environment. And that may not necessarily mean that I show every facet of myself to every group, but that flexibility is kind of a mature social skill, that you don't have to just blurt out everything about who you are with everyone. I love that. There's something else you said that I think doesn't get talked about much, but would be a mission critical component to this idea of feeling confident with comedy. And it's kind of like this trifecta, this three-legged stool of what you talked about. Okay, I am totally who I am. I'm not going to feel compelled to tell you the whole story right now. And part of that story may not be even appropriate for this group. But maybe there's something about me that is uniquely charming, or that my personality is conducive to it coming across in an endearing way. And I milk it for all it's worth. And I know that sounds a little esoteric, so let me give an example. my wife and I watch Only Murders in the Building.
Mm.
And, of course, Steve Martin and Martin Short are IRL best buddies, which is strange.
Yeah.
Both of those guys have a very unique and personalized sense of comedy. Their comedy tends to follow a certain pattern, each of them. It's very complementary. And yet, if you see them in real life, who they are is a reflection of that comedy style authentically.
Yes.
But indeed, one of the beauties of watching Only Murders in the Building is the scene will change and things will start building within this scene, and you go, oh man, this is about to be the most Steve Martin moment ever. This is about to be the most Martin Short moment ever in this show right now. And you're looking forward to it because they're good at it and they're authentically funny in that context. You know, The Father of the Bride is just one cell phone after another in the way that only Steve Martin can.
Yes.
Great example, and you'll appreciate this as a Canadian, of a movie with two guys juxtaposed who are authentically showing off and kind of reveling in their particular brand of comedy that they were so comfortable in their own skin with, is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
Again, Steve Martin and John Candy playing off each other. Those guys could not have switched roles and pulled off that movie.
No way.
Right. So, I mean, you got to know who you are, what you believe in, what your character is, and what works for you. And you can only test and prove that by maybe by getting the honest input from people you trust, but notwithstanding that, by testing it out on real life and really coming into your own with it,
I think you're touching on like a lot of nuances that I think we sometimes really overcorrect on. Like this idea of like, of course, so we're saying the starting point is to know who you are. That's literally, we're saying that right off the gate. And then the second part of what you said was know your audience. Right? Know who you're performing for. So if I'm doing a corporate gig, I'm not coming out being all blue. And if I'm doing a pub gig, I'm not coming out with squeaky clean material. You got to kind of know who you're talking to. You should know the person in front of you, right? And so like that flexibility that you spoke on is the ability to not just be aware of who you are, but aware of who is in front of you. Right. So it's environmental awareness, right? Like I've had dates completely bomb just because of where I was. Right. Like it was a very hot day.
Yes.
I was too sweaty. I couldn't stop talking about how sweaty I was. Apparently that's a turnoff on a date. So I found that out pretty quick.
If you get sweaty together, a good thing. If you're sweaty without her, not so much.
Like I literally ended the date with, hey, why don't you wait about a half an hour before telling me we're not compatible? That's how I ended.
Let me towel off first and get some lemonade.
I knew my audience. Like, when you bomb too, you know what I mean? And so like, I was very aware that did not go the way I wanted it to go. And I think there's a few things that go with this that we can actually be very practical about, right? So you already mentioned the concept of yes and. For those that are not familiar with this means like you're going to take something that's offered to you and you're going to build upon it, right? You don't want to put walls in front of people. And there's another rule in improv that people very much gloss over. They always go to the yes and, but they forget that there's no mistakes. I think sometimes we are so in our head about the mistakes we might make instead of just in real time being like, oh, I didn't mean to say it this way. I flubbed some words earlier in this podcast. I just went, oh, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say this, and then you just continue going forward. Like that is more confident if you are able to just kind of accept what is in front of you instead of being like, oh, I messed up. I said the wrong thing. I called her by the wrong name. No, okay, you called her by the wrong name. You're going to have to make a joke about that now. And now it's going to be an inside joke between you two. Maybe that's her name in your phone now.
There are a couple things there. First of all, we need to elaborate upon yes and for sure.
Absolutely.
No doubt there. Okay. But before we do that, there are other components of humor.
Yeah.
Melvin Helitzer's book, Comedy Writing Secrets, does a great job of outlining them.
Yes,
the book
that's
is
a great
way
book.
Too long. Yeah, but
wow, you're pulling out the deep cuts, baby boy.
Oh no, but that's a brilliant work.
Yes,
he was great at articulating what's funny, perhaps better than anybody ever.
Very surgical. Yeah.
Yes, and one of them is exaggeration humor. But you can't just say, oh, I did this a million times and wonder why nobody's laughing. Exaggeration humor follows a flow and a pattern. And when you were talking about, oh, God, I messed up, Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live, he did this whole program where he would interview people and be real sheepish. And he'd say something stupid and the person being interviewed would be like, I don't understand. And, oh, God, so stupid, blah, blah, blah. There was one where he was interviewing Paul McCartney and he was like, you remember that time when you did Let It Be? He goes, yeah, I remember. I was there recording. Yeah, of course you did. God, stupid. Yeah. But he exaggerates that. The motion exaggerated, which makes it funny because we can all relate to messing up. But when we mess up, we're not that hard on ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I am very much. That's my comedic style. I love going over the top. I will take something and be like, oh, we are going to multiply this by 100. Because
John Belushi, the master.
I love doing that. For me, it's an energetic thing. Right. I love getting it out and being big. And it's almost like sharing this part that I can't always share, and you're going to be in a moment where if you can share something that you can't always share with someone, that is actually a bid for intimacy. It's a bid for connection in the moment.
Yes, it is. And you're, yes. And, when a woman is connecting with you, that's the time to bring in the exaggeration humor, or even if it's ironic exaggeration humor. You're like, oh man, I'm not really hungry right now. I suppose I could eat. Then you get a thing of popcorn and go with the first two, and she'll just start laughing. If you both have established you're both goofballs, right?
Yeah.
So that comes when you have that connection. Then the exaggeration humor. Then the physical humor, the shtick. Ruth Buzzy beating somebody over the head with a heavy purse. Those are the things you can do when you get to know a woman. But when you're just getting to know her, I would suggest that the comedy strategies that really are attractive are, first of all, just being what I call warm and light. I call it warm levity. So many guys are stoic. They're looking into the camera when they're doing their online dating photos going, I was like, you're not at your best there, bro. Why are you doing that? But somehow, somebody on some website told them to do that. But women are all going like, dude, what? They're all eye rolling, right?
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is make a woman feel safe and comfortable with you, because that's how women get horny. That is the masculine act, okay?
Yeah.
Is to make a woman feel safe and comfortable. And when women start feeling comfortable, they start laughing. So anything you can do just to lighten up, just to take the pressure off. I mean, it's almost like if you knock some coffee over at the beginning of a first date, you don't go into Chris Farley mode. You go, oh, well, we got that out of the way. Now the embarrassment has happened. We could just relax now. And she'll probably think, wow, that is really amazing. Because you were confident, like you said, brilliantly before. This kind of went under the bridge like flowing water. We should have parked on that one a little bit, but it would have been, hey, a mistake happened. I'm cool. I can brush it off. I'm not so inside my head that I'm taking myself so seriously. And boy, do guys struggle with that. Now, where it becomes catnip is when you can take a situation, twist it around, and create irony. And the reason why that works so well is because that is wit. That's being quick on your feet. And the guy who can be quick on his feet sub-communicates to a woman. And I know we're getting into some pretty deep and probably unfunny psychology here, but it's all worth it. It sub-communicates that you are able to make a decision. You are able to act. You can act with confidence and with alacrity and make the right decision, because it takes that kind of skill and that skill stack to be ironically funny, to be witty.
Yeah, the one add-on I would add there, when you're talking about that these strategies can make a woman feel safe and comfortable, I want to add the point, it should not be falsely safe. You want them to be actually safe, right?
It can't be a trick.
No, this can't be an act that you put on. They're like, I'm going to trick them into feeling safe. You have to actually be a safe person to be acting this way with them. And one of the things we call this in comedy is qualifying, right? You can joke about that because you're qualified to joke about that. It's a way you make an audience feel safe. You can only go towards a comfort threshold. In some audiences, you wonder why some comedians get away with certain jokes, because their audience has a high discomfort threshold with that comedian, and they have a relationship, That's actually safe. That is safe because they are safe to joke that way with one another. And so if an outsider comes into that room, it might be shocking for them because they haven't been a part of this relationship before.
Yeah, if Dave Chappelle or South Park stopped being Dave Chappelle and South Park, respectively, we would suddenly be uncomfortable. Like, what happened?
It would be very weird because that is how they develop trust with us. They've developed trust because we know this consistency that we get from them, that we know that it's honest, right? So that's something I just wanted to make sure I was adding on there, that like, don't make them feel falsely safe, like actually be safe with them. And that does come from authenticity. And one of the things, you're talking about irony and, all these little things. I've asked people before, we do different workshops at the other comedy company. And one of the things that we do is we teach people social and emotional learning skills through comedy games, how to have difficult conversations, how to do active listening, these kind of things they don't teach us in school. And comedy is a good Trojan horse to kind of have these conversations and play games around them, right? So, and it interacts with our nervous system. That's one of the cool things about comedy. But I ask people, what do you think is one of the most important components of comedy? And I never get this answer. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to see if you give me the answer. But I never have
Timing.
Once. Is that your answer?
No, I'm joking. That's a Steve Martin joke.
Okay, I'm going to give you,
The most important element of comedy?
Yeah. What do you think it is?
Connection.
Connection?
Like connecting with people. It has to be a conversation. You can't just talk at people hoping for a response.
Now, so I'm asking a little bit more like in the craft sense, but like, so my answer to that.
Levity. Maybe that's not true because you can be dark and be funny. Are we talking about specifically with women or in general?
We're talking about, I just like when you're on stage performing.
Confidence.
Like one of the tools.
The tools.
Yeah. So,
why don't you just go ahead and tell me? I think you're coming from a specific place.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're going to be right. So go ahead and say it.
Silence.
I've actually heard that before.
Right.
And that's a component of timing, though, isn't it?
But did you notice that even when I first went silent, you did keep talking for a little bit, right? We have a natural tendency to fill silence.
Well, it is a radio show-ish.
No, of course. But it's not just a radio show. Have you not been on a date before where like you are either motor mouthing or a silence comes and you freak out because you think it's a bad thing? Silence is one of the most, we're talking about flexibility. It's one of the most elastic tools that you can have as a comedian. How you choose to pace something, how you choose to get to a punchline, the speed in which you get to it, the space you put between things. When an audience is silent, they are listening. That is such a gift. That is such a privilege to have someone listening. And to be in that space and to know how to work it and be okay with it and not let it shake you, that is confidence.
Yes.
So you were connecting. I believe silence is a big part of confidence, right? Like being okay with those spots. It doesn't define you. I think like if the whole world just knew how to sit in a quiet room by themselves for a little bit, we might work some things out.
If you look at the old school comedians, like if you go watch a Dean Martin celebrity roast, they were all masters of what you're talking about. In other words, the timing was there, and they would also do something that a lot of novice comedians haven't figured out, which is leave room for the laugh.
Yeah.
Like you punctuate a line and just kind of go and let everybody laugh. And you see the best comedians are masters at that. Jeff Dunham and all of his puppets have these uncomfortable silences where he can do the visual shtick with him and the puppets just looking at each other. And that's built in. The guys who I think of as having this incredible sense of being able to drop a joke and just let it sit for a second are the Freddie Prinzes and the Buddy Hackett's, the old school guys. Freddie Prinze less old school than, of course, Buddy Hackett. But Milton Berle, that was his whole shtick. Yeah, you know this. And he'd stop and just kind of nod and let everybody finish laughing, and then he would continue. And I think it's fair to say that if you're in front of a woman and you're doing a lot of the right things, you're showing up authentically, she can kind of figure out who you are. And by the way, as a bit of an aside, not a tangential aside, but as an important one, if you're authentically being funny the way you are funny, we mentioned Steve Martin and Martin Short, you're going to find your honey. You're going to find your soulmate. Yeah. You're going to find the chick who laughs the way you do. And oh my God, it'll be like your best friends, and that's your ride or die chick. And if you're not authentically representing, then you're not going to get her to respond powerfully to that. She could have been very responsive to who you are authentically, but because you're trying to be, back when I was a kid, everybody tried to tell jokes like Stephen Wright, but none of us were Stephen Wright. So weirdly, none of the jokes were funny when we retold them to people. That's a great example there. But when you're in front of a woman, and you're making her feel comfortable, and you're making her feel safe, part of that is once you've made the sale, shut up. Once you've made the joke, shut up. Give her room to respond, which I just failed to do. So continue.
No, like my stepdad, bless his soul, he's no longer with us, but he was with my mother for 30 years, and he had a very dry sense of humor. He was an absolute cheese doodle. I'm telling you, he was a cheese doodle through and through. His humor got silly, borderline dumb sometimes, and my mom scooped it up spoon by spoon and loved this man, loved this cheese doodle, because he made her laugh. And my mom is a beautiful woman, and she gave me the best advice of my life, because I went through a divorce, and that was very difficult. We were together for 15 years, and I asked my mom, you were with my father for 4 years and with my stepfather for 30. What was the difference? How'd you know? And she said, the laughter died with your father. And no matter how bad things got with Marvin, we always found a way to laugh. And it was actually a relationship tool for them. It was a cohesion. It was a thing that brought them back to base camp. This is who we are together. So it's not just like this dating phase. No. Right? Like being authentic with one another, you are going to be each other's favorite inside jokes. You're going to know
comedy. People think of comedy as being a surface level thing. There's depth to this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No, you're really speaking to someone's inner world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're connecting to someone's inner world. I've actually never had a partner that hasn't made me laugh to tears. And they are not women that on the surface you would say are funny. You would actually be like, oh, they're kind of bookish. They're kind of introverted. Oh, they have made me laugh so hard.
Well, they're playing yes and with you.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Even yes and
is naturally funny. Yeah. When you're playing yes and with someone and building on what they just said, it will naturally become funny without you even trying. It's like the quickest, easiest road to going, damn, I'm funny, is just to focus on the yes and. But so many guys will get on dates and they'll want to try to, first of all, men stereotypically have a hard time respecting women's know-how and intelligence and their competence, hence the mansplaining complaints from feminists. When you get on a date with a woman and you stop going, well, that's nothing, I did this, or I don't know, not so much that, or I don't know, I think you're pretty much wrong about that. And instead, you kind of resist that impulse that I think a lot of us as guys have. And then you start playing yes and with her when she says, I had a really tough day at work and, my boss yelled at me, and you say, well, yes, and that's why we're not going to do any yelling here tonight. We're just going to have fun. And then she would go, yes, and I'm ready for some fun. Yes. So the first fun thing we're going to do is, tell a joke or get the waiter over here, or maybe it'd be really funny if I spilled coffee everywhere. And she's going to go, yes, and it wouldn't be funny to clean it up. But see, that last one feels like a no but, like it wouldn't be funny to clean it up. But she is actually building on what I said instead of saying, this is a stupid conversation. Let's talk about, shoe shopping instead. So the nuances of yes and naturally create a safe space for you to connect, and it turns funny sooner than later. It has to. But a
You're
lot of guys
trusting the
really fall into
process.
that no but trap, don't they?
Absolutely. You're trusting the process. And the big thing is, do you know what is not trusting the process? What is not yes and? Making it an interview. Going on a date and you're just like suddenly like, so what was your first cat's name and your favorite color? You know,
How
like
many women have you slept with? Yes, and you're next. You know,
right? Like I actually have had someone tell me their kill count on the first date, and I was like, oh, cool. Like I don't know what to do with that, but like, hey, let's roll with it. We actually had great chemistry. We had a great conversation, but like it's depending on like how comfortable you are, will open up someone's comfort level themselves. And this interview thing that's happening on dates, you're seeing it. I'm seeing it on Reddit threads. I'm seeing it on
worst.
YouTube videos. People are talking about like, oh, I just want to go on a date that doesn't feel like I'm being interrogated.
yeah, mutually complaining about your exes is not yes and.
Oh,
That's mutual no but, I think.
and trauma dumping is not yes and. Like this person don't know you. You just met. You swiped right because you thought each other were kind of hot. That's
My
it.
dad beat me with a belt every night. Yes, and so did mine, you know.
Oh, let's bond
Baseball.
on this. Let's make this our foundation. Like, I would rather, going back to what you said, I don't want to diminish what you said about connection. I just think we don't fully understand connection, or we are afraid to open up parts of ourselves to really connect on positive things, right? Connect on goals, connect on values. Connect on things that you really deeply care about. I'm a deeply passionate person. If you're not going to be someone that understands an entrepreneurial lifestyle, I'm not going to be for you.
Yeah,
I'm just not going to
threw
be
a
for you.
blanket on it with the connection answer to your previous question.
What's that?
I kind of threw a blanket over the question you asked about what's the most important component of comedy, because I think, you know, that's probably something that deserves to be broken down. It's a little, you know, kind of out there. But I do think that, given that this is a show for men who want to get better with women, if I feel like I'm aloof or I'm apart or I'm on a stage trying to perform or trying to be something I'm not, being inauthentic, incongruent even, there is not going to be a connection.
No.
And I really do believe in everything we've talked about on this show, that whole idea of making a woman feel safe and comfortable, and how warm levity does that, and taking ourselves too seriously is poisonous. It's just toxic to that environment. When women start interviewing you on first dates, instead of yes-anding the interview, you yes-end the interview. And, you know, say, hey, you know what? What I've always said in those situations is, there's not a question you can ask me that you're going to get a scary answer to you that turns you off. I got all the answers for everything you're going to ask. And if I don't, I'll make a good one up. But my goodness, let's just have fun and enjoy this and see if we get along here for a while. I think you look better than your pictures. I was already having fun before the interview questions came out. Let's just relax. You know, we clocked out. You know, work is earlier today.
That's a comedy trick, right? When a comedian on stage calls out that they're bombing, all of a sudden you can turn the show at that point.
Yes,
right?
you know, right. Yes, you can do that.
Acknowledge it. Acknowledge what's going on in the moment. It's okay if you are both conscious of it. Just say it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's just calling it out. I remember the old movie Punchline, which I'm sure you've worn out a couple copies of.
I've actually never watched Punchline.
Never?
Never.
With Tom Hanks and Sally Field.
Yeah, it was one of those movies that looked too cringe for me to want to even go down that road.
Well, the cringe is built in on purpose.
Yeah.
Because you have these comedians, these wannabe comedians who are trying too hard. And Sally Fields is, you know, according to the plot, and this isn't a spoiler, you guys can watch the movie. It's a good date movie, sort of. She's an accidental comedian. It's not unlike The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Okay.
Okay, but her husband was trying to be the comedian, and they got divorced because she was funnier. It's kind of along the same lines. As a matter of fact, Mrs. Maisel's probably a more contemporary example. I'm funny because I'm trying not to be. I'm here. I'm just myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm going to spit this out. And it's endearing enough that people start laughing. And then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, I got another one. And the next thing you know, people have connected with you and they're rooting for you.
Yeah.
Right. And when you bomb and you weren't a bad person, you weren't trying too hard, and you say something like, well, that was funny when I wrote it down on paper. In real life, not so much, huh? Then people will agree with you. And then guess what you've just done? You've done a yes and. People are nodding their head. Yes, and, I promise to do better,
Well,
like a lot of commercial. Right.
A lot of people, like what I see in the dating world is a lot of people do want relationships. And would not the goal of a relationship be to be two people rooting for each other?
Oh, you bet.
You want to be the audience that's just the biggest, I want you to win.
And you know what? I think the most authentic and endearing measure of personal confidence would be to go on a date, not worrying about the outcome for yourself, but hoping she enjoys this date.
Absolutely.
Wanting her to be successful on this date.
The more you give. The more you give, like, this is almost like, this is an open secret. In life, you give. You give to people. In business, you just give. Like, that's the more value you give someone, the more time you give someone, the more they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel like they belong, they feel cared for. Like, it's just going to come back. You don't have to expect it. It's coming.
In the end, the amount of love you give is equal. Amount you get is equal to the amount of love you give.
Yeah, man. Like, I really believe that.
I'm in hippie mode here now.
Absolutely. No, now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
I'm such a hippie. When I got divorced, the first thing I did was get a broken heart tattooed on my ring finger. I've always been such a creature of love. Like, comedy to me is a labor of love. It is truly a relationship. For a while, I thought it was a codependent relationship. I was that guy that was I needed this validation, And so when we're comparing this to relationships, it's so personal for me because I've had these relationships with audiences where there was nights where I really wanted them to just tell me I mattered. And I didn't feel that because it was just it's clear I was being needy. It was clear I wasn't believing in myself.
You can see good comedians sometimes change the tone of a conversation and still come off like a comedian. Chappelle can do that.
Absolutely. He's probably the king of that.
Yeah. And if you go on a date with a woman, and I think this is a fitting close to this particular episode because these guys are going to start feeling like they're drinking from a fire hose. It's been such an amazing amount of
I'll have to come back another time.
Oh, of course you will, man.
Yeah.
And when you've made her laugh and when you've made her feel comfortable, there can be a tonal change and you're going to have to read the room because, if she does feel like she's connected with you enough to be a little vulnerable about something that's painful to her, obviously you're still not going to be in court jester mode. And what I think a lot of guys don't understand is when you change the tonality, you're not somehow being fake. That's another part of you that's coming out. That's another facet of the diamond you are coming out and shining. And I think that's important. So, we don't always have to be on stage. We should never be on stage with a woman. We should be wanting to make her feel safe and comfortable and having the comedy part of what projects confidence and helps build our confidence, like you said. But yeah, man, when something happens that's a little darker and more poignant, now you've earned her trust. When a woman shows you that vulnerability, it's almost like when you meet a dog, it rolls over and says, scratch my tummy. It's being vulnerable in a good way. I love it. I think it's great. It's time to send these guys to your website, Clifford.
All right.
Which is theothercomedy.co. And of course, as is my practice, I've also made a link that's mountaintoppodcast.com/Myers, MYERS. And that will point them to theothercomedy.co. What will they find when they get there?
Oh, so they're going to see what we're doing at our company. We're building social and emotional learning games that people can use in small groups. We use them for schools and organizations. So we're actually democratizing comedy beyond entertainment, and we're using it.
None of this fascist comedy.
Yeah, we're done with fascist comedy. This is socialist comedy. This is much more socialist. Just the idea that comedy can be a learning tool for us, and it is something that increases our discomfort, puts us in situations we're not normally comfortable to be in. It's a safe way to be unsafe. And so what I would tell your audience is everything that we talked about today, be open to just taking a risk, to just putting yourself out there. And it's okay to look silly. Don't take yourself so serious. You're going to be surprised what parts of yourself you meet in this process.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love the work you're doing. If you have a safe space to be unsafe, that would borderline on communist comedy in my mind. But notwithstanding that, I think what you're doing is great. His name is Clifford Myers, and he is from Canada, and he is a professional comedian and a comedy stylist, if you've ever seen.
And I will just throw out there, if they want to check out
the movie, yeah.
If they want to check out my latest comedy special, it's called Joke Box Hero, and it's on YouTube now.
Fantastic! I'm all in.
Awesome.
Fantastic. And guys, if you want to be all in, check out our sponsors, Jocko Willink's Company, Origin in Maine, the Keyport, and Hero Soap. All of those sponsors, our 3 longtime sponsors, are going to make you look, smell, and be equipped like a man. And those are all very good things. And when you use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10, you'll get an additional 10% off with any of them. Guys, the websites are faster. They've been improved. Your buying experience when you get one of my programs or get a ticket to the masterclass is greatly improved. I know I'm probably more proud of that than you are, but every little bit helps, and we're trying to be excellent around here. Visit themountaintoppodcast.com, get on my calendar, talk to me. Check out the masterclasses, guys. Good stuff every month. I pour my heart and soul into a specific topic, and nothing gets left on the table, and you guys can interact. It's not just downloading and listening. That's old school. Nowadays, it's interactive. You can email me. You can get on the phone and talk to me about what went on in that masterclass. So really, it's not the kind of thing that AI can replace. Masterclasses equal good stuff. All of that is there for you and more at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.